My name's Guy Kestivan. I've been a professional bike and kit reviewer for over 25 years, and today I'm in the workshop for a tech talk around on Evil's mid-travel offering trail bike after a full year of proper hardcore hammering on the trails. So let's get into the dimensions and the geometry on the Evil first. As you can see, you've got this massive kind of Australopithecine chin reinforced head tube here, with the neat internal cable routing running down the inside, and it's fully sleeved inside now, so quite easy to service. And the head tube runs at either 65.8 or 66.4 degrees, depending where you have the geometry chip. We'll talk about that in a second. Then the big change for this generation of Evils was a move to a longer reach. So this large has a 485 or 491 mil reach. They've still kept the really, really short seat tube, so 425, loads of room there for that bike yoke 185 mil dropper post, and they've kept with Super Boost as well. So you've got 157 mil rear axle, a lot wider than the standard 148, but that means they can bring the chainstay length in really, really short. So it's 430 or 432, depending on where you run that flip chip, and there's still plenty of room in there for, as you can see, it's running a 235 in there at the moment, but you can squeeze a 2.6 in there if you're careful. And then moving it into the flip chip here, which is just this bottom triangular section on the Delta Link suspension, you've got extra low and low, which, to be honest, is a bit misleading, because actually in low it's 347 and in extra low it's 339, which isn't actually that low for a 141 mil travel bike, but that's where the geometry change magic happens. You've got to undo 3 bolts, and then you change the little pull link there, because this whole system is a pull link rather than a push link, like most linkage assemblies, but it doesn't actually take that long. And the good news is we've had 0 issues with the bolts loosening on any part of this bike during testing, which again was something that Evil's had a rep for previously. But potentially, in fact, I'm almost certainly, it's because you've now got this huge single-piece swing arm on the back. This is properly monolithic in scale. Look at the depth of those chainstays. And you've got that moulded sound dampening on there. You've got more sound dampening underneath there. So it's a really properly heavily protected frame. And new to this generation of bikes, you've also got this reinforcing spar that runs right through from the top tube. Really kind of cleans the lines up overall as well, but obviously adds key strength right in the centre of the bike, because actually the rest of it, that top tube is pretty slim. It's not quite Mondraker flat, and then the down tube itself, again, it's quite, it's properly slim. When you look at something like a Hightower, you're almost getting to like e-bike dimensions on a lot of conventional bikes now, and then it only swells again once you get up to this head tube. But that does mean there's no internal storage on this bike, but you have got room for a bottle, and obviously there's plenty of real estate up here if you want to strap a tube in. And then looking at more frame features here, you've got heavy-duty rubber cover over a foam dampener underneath, so you've got a really, really solid rock protection under there. And then, as you can see, the trunnion shock just mounts into the frame at the bottom there, and then drives from the top here. But the suspension, while it's obviously controlled by this Dave Weigel designed Delta Link system, which has been, introduced a while back now on the very, very first Evil Revolts, which were properly game-changing bikes in terms of downhill performance, but unfortunately, it suffered a lot with quality control issues and nearly put Evil extinct before it really got some momentum. But now the bikes are, it's a much bigger company. It's a much, should we say, more focused on delivery company than it was initially. It's still got that sort of insolent vibe running through all the bikes, the naming, the colour naming, and just the whole kind of company feel is still properly out there. But I'm waffling on. Basically, it's a single pivot design with a pull shock and rocker, and like I say, that little chip there with which you can flip the geometry. And I could go on about, axle path and stuff like that, and how, how the shock works and stuff. But to be honest, just go and watch the live ride review, because that section of bike there is a proper speed generation engine. The rowdier and jankier things get, the faster this drives the bike forwards and the more it grips. I mean, the control and consistent traction you get out of that. And also just the way it kind of, with hits that you expect to like choke the bike and slow it down, properly fire you forward. There's a real adjustment period if you're coming off most bikes and jumping onto an Evil. You know, for the amount of travel it's got, it does an half surge you forwards. And even though when you're pedaling, it looks pretty mobile, there's actually quite a lot of shock movement if you look down. Because that single pivot is so sorted, it just drives really, really well. So you don't feel any of that feedback through your legs. And it's very rare that we've ever thought of switching that pedal lever on the Super Deluxe Shock. I think Ryan, who's been put most of the time into this bike, said he never actually used it at all. And I have to say, been really, really impressed with how well this bike has climbed, because again, previous generation Evils didn't quite have it. There was a softness about them. I mean, you do lose a little bit off the nose of the pedal stroke with a Delta Link, but once it settles into that mid-stroke, that's genuinely where the magic happens. And this build comes in at 14.3 kilos. So let's talk about the specifics of the build. I mean, first thing I need to say is these are not the tyres you will be getting on an Evil offering build. These are just some ones we've been testing long term, just to add some running speed into the bike. It should come with Maxxis DHF front and rear. And obviously this is a build from last year when I started testing it. So you've got previous generation Lyric on there. You'll get new Lyric on the new bike. You've got Code RSC brakes the same though. And you've still got, on this build, you've got analog SRAM X01. So that's your stop and go equipment. And then you've got a whole range of Evil finishing kit as well. So you've got the Pamela Henderson grips there. To be honest, not a big fan of a lock-on grip with a metal edge. I think Ryan seems to get on okay with them, but I know when I was test riding it, I swapped those out straight away. You've got the Broomstick 810mm riser bar, quite a distinctive high rise and quite a distinctive profile from the top. It kind of puts all its throw in the forward edge of the bar. And then you've got this little 12-gauge stem sat on the back, and they just work really, really well with the geometry. It's it has got a really distinct feel. You've got that kind of steeper than average head angle, and then this really long center section, and then a really short back end. So you're kind of centered in the bike still, but both ends are really, really responsive and agile. So again, go look at the live ride video, and you'll see the tighter and more dynamic the trail gets, the more this bike really, really shines. It really is exceptional in those tight technical situations. Obviously at the expense of some, flat out straight line stability if you were going for a slacker, longer bike. But, there's loads of those about, whereas this has a properly distinctive, mischievous, that's probably the best way I can sum it up, feel about it. And if you do want to slacken it out in contemporary style, then Evil offer an aftermarket headset that will take 1.5 degrees off that head angle. And then going back into spec, you've got a bike yoke dropper as standard, and then a W2B saddle up the top. And then you have got Evil's own loophole wheels. So, a lot of companies making carbon fibre wheels now, but very few, I think, apart from Evil, I think Fusion Fibre do them as well. These are actually a Fusion Fibre composite wheel where they use long chain polymers rather than the standard resins. And the idea behind that is it gives the wheel a lot more compliance. It's kind of just, it's softer. The whole composite is kind of softer in terms of the way it responds and the way it damps things. Evil throw figures like 20% damping on it, and and it definitely gives a much calmer, quieter ride to the bike, even more so than it already would have. And that's, to be honest, that's why we're running the Vittoria tyres on it, because we could get away with it because you had that more compliant, more damped rim. And they're not particularly light, 1940 grams for a set of these Super Boost 29 wheels. The rims themselves are light, but they're 32 spokes, which adds a bit of weight. 2 cross on the front, 3 cross on the back. And they're not cheap either. I think clock these at $2.5 grand. So they are adding quite a lot of cash to this overall build. But you can spec the bike with or without the loophole wheels. And the other advantage of going to the loopholes, because you've got this structure, this unique structure, and you've also got molded spoke holes there on the wheels. They come with a lifetime warranty. Although, inevitably part of the review process, you kind of read around, look at other people's experiences of the rim. There do seem to be a relatively high number of breakages from other testers while they've been using these rims. I mean, these have been fine. Like I say, we've run them for a year, 0 problems. Industry 9, Hydra Hub, still spinning beautifully on the back. The wheels are true. There's a little bit of cosmetic marking on, because they're actually painted. These aren't raw carbon, they're actually powder coated. But in terms of actual sort of impact, no issues at all. And if you want to see how many miles we've put into this machine, then just look how worn down this Vittorio Martello tyre is on the back. And again, from the carcass point of view, you can see this has seen some serious cornering loads. But, be aware that other people have broken them. But in every case, the reviewers have said Evil have responded brilliantly and got them up and running super quick. And in terms of warranty on the mainframe, while we are seeing a lot of carbon manufacturers, though, certainly in the premium range, going to a lifetime warranty, in terms of, whatever you do to it, they will set you up on a new bike as soon as possible. To be fair, response rates and keenness varies. I think you'd put, someone like Santa Cruz at the top of that range, and others maybe lower down if you start reading the small print. But Evil's is kind of more of an old school. If there's a defect in manufacturing or production, we will back you up. If you run it over or tomahawk it down the trail and pick it up yourself, then that's kind of on you, but we will get you a replacement frame at a reduced cost. So it's, it's not that full, just go crazy on it, but it is, it's better, certainly better than nothing. But obviously bear that in mind when you're looking at an Evil purchase. But in terms of the industrial design on this, there are some really, really neat features on here. And to keep that chain on when things are getting rowdy, you've got this little built-in integrated guide here. It takes up to a 36 tooth ring if you've got the thighs to propel that kind of chain ring. And then that's your main pivot through there. And that's double sealed angular contact bearings with Cluboplex grease, which, to be honest, I don't know much about Cluboplex grease, but it sounds German, and they've certainly lasted well. And just look in the detail there. Behind the chainring, you've got standard ISG tabs as well if you want to run a full chain guard on this bike. And actually, if you bring it round, you can see just what a big section of carbon this is running around. I mean, properly hench back end on this bike. And certainly with that super boost width, you can really feel that in the way it drives and the way it pushes out of corners. It's a proper turn and burn machine, even though, like I say, the bottom bracket isn't actually that low. But also, looking here on this detail there, that is a little sag indicator to make the setup a little bit easier. And then one detail I noticed while I was cleaning it last night, although, like I say, the bearings, everything else like that, it's all still super solid. There's no play, there's no noise. You take the shock out, it's still really, really smooth running. You can see we have, this bike has seen a lot of weather. It's seen a lot of use. There's a tiny little bit of rust on the top of that bolt receiver there, but it's a replaceable receiver. So if you can't get the wire wool to it, then zero issues. But like I say, the whole point of running this bike for a year was to kind of go, so do Evil have an issue with bearing life? And there you go. Proof of the pudding as far as I'm concerned. This has seen thousands and thousands and thousands of kilometres of use all year, and it still runs sweet as all the way through. And not just that, it's still a really, really distinctive, like I say, mischievous and fun bike. It just really, really rewards a more attacking style on the bike. Get involved with it, get active, get dynamic, and that is when the offering will really come alive. So absolutely make sure you watch that live ride video that I shot a couple of days ago, summing up our full year's experience with this bike. So, hope that's been useful to you. If you wanted to see look around on the tech details and just how well this bike has held up over the past year of riding, really, you know, Evil did get a bit of a rep early on for bearing life and things like that. But if you just keep to a brush and a bucket of water rather than going at it with a jet wash, I think this proves that this is a seriously durable bike. And obviously the latest version gets little updates like the SRAM UDH hanger as well as 2 fresh new colourways. But massive thanks to Evil for the loan of the bike for testing and letting us hang on to it for a full year, just to really get that long-term feedback for you guys. Massive thanks to Giro Cycling UK who support the channel, to Peaties and Crud as well. They've obviously helped along the way over the past 12 months with the lube and the cleaner and the fender on the front to keep everything clean and prolong the lifespan of the bike. And as always, thanks to my Patreon subscribers who pledge a monthly basis, and they get early, exclusive and extended edits as a thank you. And they get all the videos ad-free, so there's no interruptions besides the ones I accidentally add in myself. But for now, if you're not a subscriber already, please subscribe, click for notifications so you know when the next video comes up. Check out the other videos on bikes in similar categories to this, like Specialized Stump Jumper Evo, Santa Cruz Hightower, and the recent Yeti launches. And and the Pace RC135, Mondraker Race. There's a whole load of really good mid-travel trail bikes out there now. But I hope you realise from watching this video and from watching the live ride video, this is a properly distinctive and devilishly good version of that 150, 140 travel format. So, all I have to do now is to say thank you very much for watching, and I've been Guy Kestevan on Guy Kes TV, talking about the Evil offering. The devil really is in the detail on this one.